Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to show you how I paint these Studio Ghibli style clouds. Recently I've been painting a lot of Studio Ghibli scenes and I wanted to share my process for how I painted these clouds. So let's just jump right into the materials that I use. I use a filbert brush and a round brush. It's up to you what brush you want to use, but these are just the ones that I prefer, but any brush that you prefer will do. So first off, I'm just sketching out the cloud here. So I've just taken a screenshot of this cloud and I'll leave it up in the top left corner so that you can refer to it during this video. These are the paint colors that I'm using. I'll link it in the description box below so you can look at that as well. But basically I've got cerulean blue, cadmium red and white. And just with the blue, I'm just painting in a background first so that the cloud will stand out against the sky. Now I'm mixing the darkest shadow here in the cloud, so it's usually blue mixed with a little bit of red, and I'm just lightening it with some white so the red counters the blue and dulls it a little bit, so the blue isn't as vibrant. It's almost got a grayish sort of tint to it. And now I'm just placing in where I think the darkest shadows are in the cloud. I'll try to keep this video in as real time as possible so that you can see my whole process for how I paint these clouds. In total, I'll be demonstrating how to paint 3 different kinds of clouds. So this is the first one and it's the most simple. So now that I've laid down the darkest shade, I'm just lightening the color with some white and I'm just placing it on top and blending out the color. If you can paint fast, that would be an advantage because acrylic paint dries really quickly, but at the same time, the technique that I use, it doesn't require you to paint very fast because I'm mostly layering colors on top of one another. So even if you're a little bit slow, you can always go back and fix up areas that don't look as smoothly blended as possible. So acrylic is also a very forgiving medium because you can always wait for the paint to dry and then just layer new colors on top. So if you make mistakes, you can always cover it up. It just takes a little bit more effort, but it's definitely more forgivable than a medium like watercolor. I hope that I'm able to explain what I'm doing clearly, but also hoping that the video can sort of explain itself here. You'll notice that I use my fingers to blend quite a bit. I actually find that using your fingers to blend can actually give quite a good result. So don't be afraid to just use your fingers to blend sometimes if you think that you've laid on a color that just looks too harsh. So I'm just still layering in lighter and lighter colors. So I started off with the deep dark shadow and then I just mixed white into the mixture and then I'm just layering those colors along the edges and smoothing it out. At this point I've now picked up pure white paint and I'm layering it at the parts which have the brightest highlights. So white can take a few layers to build up. So that's also a good thing because you can use the white to soften the edges without it looking too harsh all at once. So it takes a few layers to build up the crisp and clean white. And I find that this step helps to define the cloud a lot and it really makes it pop because you're putting on those brightest highlights, so it gives it more depth and dimension. The reason I like using a filbert brush to paint clouds is because I like the curve of the brush. I feel like it gives a nice natural shape to the edges of the clouds and it just allows me to sort of scruff around the edges and just make it look soft and fluffy, which is what a cloud should look like. So I'm still using white and just scrubbing on white here and there to soften it, but now I've decided to go back to the darker shadows and I'm just reinforcing where the darker shadows are, so that way I'm creating more depth. So I usually paint my clouds in a few layers. So that was the first layer and now I'm moving on to the second layer, and I always refer to the reference that I'm looking at and just trying to pick out which areas I can improve. So which areas need more shadow and which areas need more highlights, and that's how you can achieve depth in your painting. I also wanted to mention that I'm currently doing the 100-day challenge where I'm painting in my sketchbook every day. So if you would like to see more, you can check out my Instagram, which I've linked below. I feel like that challenge has really helped me to build up resilience to paint more every day, even though it can be hard sometimes to complete a painting once a day. It does take a lot of effort, but I think that it's forced me to paint more each day and paint more consistently. And I've mostly just been painting Studio Ghibli, so hence this video. So this cloud is almost finished now. I'm just putting on some finishing touches. I always just like to go in with some pure white and just really enhance those highlights. I think that's the most fun part. Hopefully it's been clear so far how I painted this cloud. The next one I'll be showing is a little bit more complicated. It's a larger cloud and it's got a bit more depth to it. So with this one, I'm just going to be showing you how I managed to paint this. So I've already sketched out what it looks like, just very lightly, and now I'm using primary cyan, but you can always just use the same blue you were using before. And I've mixed a deeper shade because I feel like the shadows are a bit darker for this cloud. So to make it a bit darker, I'm just adding a little bit more red and less white to the mixture. And the more red you add, the more purple it'll become. And usually I will put in the background first, so that way the white of the cloud can really stand out against the background, which is just usually blue. And after I laid in the dark shadows, I'm just going in with a light blue and going around the edges of the cloud, because I can see in the picture that there are light areas of blue around it. It's not just purely white. So when it comes to painting clouds, it can be easy to fall into the trap of only seeing white and the shadow, but it's important to notice that there are many shades of the white, or in this case light blue, or even grey. So it's important that you paint in layers and you're always building up to the white. If you start off just painting your whole cloud in white, it'll just end up looking very flat. So it's important that you're first putting down a layer of a light color, and then you're contouring and highlighting areas that are brighter, because it's not just one shade of white there. So that's what I'm doing here, and I'm just softening out the edges with the shadow and using just the same techniques that I was using before. I'm using the filbert brush to my advantage by scruffing it at the edges so that the edges of the shadow are not so harsh. And if it is harsh, just keep going back and forth between it. So because acrylic paint dries so fast, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to blend out a color, and it just dries before you're able to apply your next color onto it. So what I usually do is I'll just mix in the blending color. I'll mix in that in between color and I'll lay it on top. So that's the best that I can do to make it look like a smooth transition. And if you look at it from afar, it usually looks quite good. You can't tell that it wasn't blended smoothly, but if you look closer, maybe you can see the brush strokes. But I also quite like that effect because it gives it a painterly sort of look. So that was the second cloud that I finished, and I just wanted to show you guys how using these simple techniques can help you achieve different kinds of clouds. So this is just my sketchbook with some of the paintings that I've done recently. They're all from Studio Ghibli, and I've had a lot of fun painting these different kinds of clouds. So the last one that I want to show you is another Studio Ghibli scene, but I want to show you how I paint the entire painting, and to show you how the cloud fits into the entire picture. So I'm using cerulean blue and white and also red again, and I've mixed in my base color. So when I analyze this painting, I can see that the shadows are a lot more purple, almost a shade of red. So I'm just making sure to add more red in. In this last painting, I'll be speeding it up quite a bit because This painting did take me around 2.5 hours to do, so I don't want that to take up the whole video, so I've just sped up some parts of it, but I'll try to retain as much of it in real time as I can, and I'll still try to explain through the process of what I'm doing. So I've laid down the shadow colors, and my shadow isn't just one shade of purple. I've got purple, some bits that are a bit more red, some bits that are a bit more blue, and then once I've sort of got my darkest colors in, I'm going in with lighter colors, and I'm just adding white to the mixture. And I'll just sort of go around the edges of the shadows and soften it. And you'll realize that when you paint clouds, it'll always look very strange. The start will always look very awkward and it won't look like a cloud. But you just have to keep working at it and keep layering on. And if you keep going and just adding on the highlights and shadows, in the end it should look like a cloud. I also wanted to take this time to say thank you for 100 subscribers. I know it's a small number, but I'm just so happy that people actually see my videos, and every time I see a comment on one of my videos, I get so excited and I can't wait to reply to it and just interact with other people who are interested in art and enjoy seeing what I do. So thank you to anyone who has left a nice comment for me. It really makes my day when I see comments on my videos. And if you have any suggestions for what kind of videos you'd like to see, please do leave it in the comments below. I'd love to know what you guys would like to see, because recently I've just been painting in my sketchbook, and I've just been recording some of the paintings I've been doing and just putting it up on YouTube. But if there's anything else you'd like to see, I'd love to have a go at trying to make a video out of it. So now back to the cloud. I'm just putting in the highlights here, and I like how the white paint can go a long way. So even if I've run out of paint on my brush, I'll still use it to keep scruffing, because it's good when there's less paint on the brush as well, because it gives you very light coverage and it can almost look like this thin layer of fog. So you'll see that sometimes I scruff my brush back and forth, and then I'll just use my fingers to go over it and smudge it out so that it's not so harsh, but then it puts a white layer over the top of the shadows so that they're not so harsh as well. So that's what I'll be doing for the rest of the cloud, and I'll also be showing you the process for the rest of the painting so you can see how it all ties together. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I really hope you got something out of it. So this is just my process for how I've been painting these Studio Ghibli style clouds, and I hope that you'll give it a go. Please stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!